Today's reading is titled An Ancient Word in the book of Mark, chapter 1, verses 29 to 39. Please close your eyes and visualize the scene in your mind as I read. Jesus made a big impression on people in the synagogue in Capernaum. He was an excellent teacher and healer as well. After a full morning at the synagogue, Jesus went to Simon and Andrew's house, bringing with him James and John. Once there, he learned that Simon's mother-in-law was in bed with a high fever. Jesus went to her, took her by the hand, and helped her up. At his touch, the fever was gone, and she began to take care of their needs. Who is this person? The people wondered. That evening, after the sun had set, the people of Capernaum brought all who were sick to be healed. It seemed as though the whole city was gathered around the door of the house. So, who is this person? The people asked. In the wee hours of the morning, Jesus got up, left the others, found a place by himself, and prayed. Simon and his companions, upon waking and finding Jesus gone, set out to find him. They said to him, "Everyone is looking for you." Jesus said, "Now you have found me. Let's be on our way. We're going to the neighboring towns so I can share my message there also. This is what God sent me to do." "This person is God's love in the flesh," the people said. Jesus, Simon and Andrew, James and John went all over Galilee. Jesus taught in the synagogues and healed many people too.
Living beyond the chaos. As we continue our series on living beyond, an interesting story to consider. And as we listen to the story, there are elements of chaos, confusion within the story. Some are based in the story itself, and some are based in the fact that the story comes from the first century, and we're living in the 21st century, and some of the values that we see might be a little bit confusing to us. From the very beginning, when Jesus heals Peter's mother-in-law, the story tells us that Jesus gives her his hand and she gets up and she starts to serve them. She goes to work right away. I mean, good grief, give us a break. Why don't you give her the afternoon off? Well, it's not a reference to servitude. It's not a reference to having to work. It's a reference of having your life restored, having your honor restored. Imagine getting ready for a party and inviting, 10 or 12, some of your best friends to the party, and boom, all of a sudden you're sick with the flu. What do? You have to call it off. What do you want to do the most? Take the afternoon off, or be well and be able to serve, be the hostess or the host that you would long to be? It's a story of coming back to wholeness. And then we move on. Oh my. And we see that many people, Capernaum was a city or a town of about 1,500 back in Jesus' day, along the Sea of Galilee on the north side. We have archaeological digs that have uncovered Capernaum, so we can see kind of the layout of some of the streets. The houses were not all that big, houses pretty close together. Imagine 1,500 people knocking at your door. That's a lot of chaos. But we see Jesus healing, but the story says Jesus healed many. Many? Why not all? We keep going. He cast out many demons. Demons. What? We don't refer to demons too much today. Instead, we refer to maybe psychiatric disorders, maybe epilepsy. And we treat those illnesses with medications. In the first century, the language was more of treating demons. And then Jesus wouldn't permit the demons to speak. Why not? Does that make sense? Well, that's really a reference to Mark's Christology, the purpose for Jesus' life. In the Gospel of Mark, we see a suffering servant Christ whose purpose is to come to live among us and to suffer. And it's not a miracle worker. Jesus' purpose is not to be a real popular miracle worker in and of itself. When Jesus heals people, it's in the Gospel of John, he refers to miracles as signs. Signs point the way. Don't focus on what Jesus does, focus on who Jesus is. So we have some confusing language that can confuse the story, create its own chaos. But at the center of the story, we do have chaos. Imagining 1,500 people, 1,200, 100. Seemed like the whole town to me if there were 100 people at my door. We have elements of chaos. Well, I wanted to focus in on chaos because obviously we continue to live with chaos today. Listen to the news, open up the newspaper. Chaos surrounds us. Chaos is within us. Living beyond chaos, what can we do with that? What are some thoughts, some reflections that you might be able to take some ideas home with you and toy with them this week? Well, I'd like to look at chaos from three different arenas, three different reflective stages. First of all, chaos related to the soul, our center of being. Chaos related to our integrity, basically our behaviors. And then what I'd call environmental chaos, chaos that's around us. First of all, chaos within the soul. And what I'm referring to here is that oftentimes when things are going badly, we question what's happening here. We question the nature, who is God? When I'm going through a difficult time or when I'm trying to understand things, is God on my side or is God against me? Is God making this happen because I've been bad and he's trying to get my attention? Is God judge? Who am I fighting? Who has my back? Some questions that we can have as far as our spiritual walk. One thing I might ask you to do at some point, 2 pieces of paper. Make a circle on each page. On the first page, within the circle, write down some names, write down some words that would describe God to you. Old Testament, New Testament, but some words that would describe the nature of God. If you would personalize God, what would God's face look like? A word or two. What are some of the attitudes that you would expect from God? With the second circle, considering Jesus' ministry, what are some words that you would use to describe Jesus' reflection of who God is? If you would imagine Jesus' face, what words would come to mind? What words would come to mind as far as how Jesus would describe God's attitude? Then I would ask you to look at both of those circles, and my experience is that if we can take those circles and overlap them, and they equal each other, we have more of a chance of experiencing the holy rest that Jesus describes. Come to me, all who are weary, and I will give you rest. Part of our job as being a Christian is to experience God as Jesus revealed God to us. There's many ways to understand God, but as a Christian, we're looking to understand God through Jesus' eyes. How to avoid some chaos within our soul. And then, of course, there can be chaos between our actions and our words. And this, again, is more chaos that we kind of do to ourselves. Sometimes integrity, we know what the right thing to do is, but we just don't do it. Or it seems too hard. Two examples of this from the sports world. The one goes back to 1925. A golfer by the name of Bobby Jones. In 1925, he's in the U.S. Open. Has an opening shot, goes up in the air, swings down, it missed the fairway. It's in the rough. Lines up for the second shot. His club moves the ball ever so lightly. He's in tall grass. Continues to line up, he makes his second shot. Goes over to the scorekeeper and says, "You're going to have to give me a penalty shot. I moved the ball." Scorekeeper says, "What? Are you crazy? I didn't see anything." "No, you have to give me a penalty shot." Some more people join into the conversation. They're all trying to tell Bobby Jones that you don't have to take a penalty shot. He insists. As it would be at the end of the tournament, if he didn't take that penalty shot, he would have won. But as it was, there was a tie score, and they had to have a playoff. Bobby Jones lost. So then afterwards, reporters come up to him and say, "Wow, what sportsmanship. What an example for the rest of us." And Bobby Jones' response was, "You might as well praise me for not robbing a bank. There's only one way to play this game. Integrity. Integrity." Today, they continue to, every year, they give a Bobby Jones trophy out to someone who displays sportsmanship. I find that a little ironic. I mean, I long for the day when our faith transforms us to the point where you'd have a committee sitting down trying to decide who gets this Bobby Jones trophy, and they're scratching their head because, well, everybody, I don't even know where to begin to look because this describes everybody. I'll continue to hope for that day. Another example, integrity. Now, I'm in fantasy land here too. If you've been watching the papers recently, there's this Deflategate in the news. And if we were in New England, it would be a rebel-rousing argument. But anyway, I long for the day when we have a topic like Deflategate, and you have the team owner or someone representing the team getting up and saying, we just heard about a situation where maybe some of the rules of fair play were broken. We're looking into it. We're very concerned about this because when two teams get on the field, we need to honor the rules of the game and we need to honor integrity. And if it's found that we've broken the rules, we're going to have to do what we have to do to make it right. Does that mean you might even forfeit the game? Well, if we broke the rules, we may have to forfeit the game. I got to wonder what the response would be. Integrity. To be able to sleep at night with our decisions. Integrity is deeper than just not getting caught when we do something wrong. It's living with ourselves. It's not always easy. Maybe you need to get some ideas from others. But if we can maintain our inner peace, there's a third category of chaos that's external. It's environmental. And it's coming at us every day. And you know the examples of that type of chaos better than I do. You know how it is to have winter weather come at us? Chaos. You know how it is to have sickness enter the house? Chaos. You know how it is to have loved ones die? Chaos. All these factors that are hitting us all around. What can we do with that? Well, my experience is that if we can have a solid relationship with the God that we know, and if we can have a solid relationship with ourselves, that we can live with integrity when we're dealing with that external chaos, life is more controlled. Some chaos around us. Also in the news yesterday, you might have heard there's a lotto drawing. It's up to, what was it, $375 million, I think? It's probably more than that now. But they were asking people, what would you do if you'd win? This lady said, I'd give it to charities. Okay. What would you do? Well, I'd help the kids. And it goes on and on. If you want chaos in your life, win $375 million. Oh my word. You need to imagine what it would be like for Jesus to have the whole town standing in front of his door back in the first century. Imagine winning $375 million and coming home to chaos. Do we really want that? I don't know. That might be a discussion in and of itself. Well, the long and the short of it, living beyond chaos. Our faith doesn't keep us from the chaos in life. There's really no way that we would live in a bubble and pretend that we aren't affected by what happens out in the world. And as Christians, we're not really called to live outside of the world. We're called to live within the world and be whole people and to rest in the presence of God and to know what that presence is. And when we listen to Jesus' voice, God is on our side. God's faith is supporting us. His compassionate face greets us every single day. So go out this week, enter into life with integrity, with peace.